Welcome to the Carl Nelson Show
on Washington, D.C.'s 1450 WOL Radio and live around the world on WOLDCnews.com.
And thank you for joining us today, folks. We're going to talk about the Harriet Tubman sex tape. The tape done by Russell Simmons. Russell has issued an apology, but as yet he has not yet issued an apology directly to the descendants of Harriet Tubman. We spoke to them earlier today. We'll tell you about that conversation as we go on. But right now we're going to be joined by Najee Ali, political activist out in Los Angeles, and he had a press conference about this. And I know he's been doing some digging and find out who's all involved in this, putting this tape together. Brother Najee, welcome back to WOL.
Well, thanks, Carl, for having me. And yes, we're still in L.A. on the front lines of advocating, make sure that our heroes and sheroes in our community aren't disrespected by anyone. So Russell Simmons needs to be held accountable, and that's what we did today by calling for a boycott of all his business interests. And we did find out some information, which I posted on your Facebook wall, Carl, is that the Jews are behind financing Russell Simmons in this venture. So I don't want to come off.
That's kind of broad. When you say the Jews, be specific, because maybe not all Jewish people are supporting supporting in this venture.
I'll be real clear. I don't want to be perceived as being racist or anti-Semitic, because I'm not. But at the end of the day, the owners of DreamWorks is part of the companies that are financing Russell Simmons' venture on YouTube. And I do know the owners of that company are from the Jewish community. And it's kind of disheartening, Carl, because at the end of the day, Russell and felt comfortable enough to disrespect African Americans and our heroes and sheroes, yet we don't see the same type of effort to make light of the Holocaust and those victims by any black entertainer or entertainment company, because they know if they do, the Jews will end them, Carl. And that's why we have to make Russell Simmons an example and not let him off the hook this lightly.
Right. I just don't want it to be like the Jews, as you keep saying. Be specific. It's just let's because it's not all. The owners. We don't want anybody accused of being anti-Semitic. So be specific. You know who's financed it.
The owners of DreamWorks. Those owners.
Okay, that's what we.
Steven Spielberg.
Okay. And basically this morning you also called for a boycott. What has been the result? Have you received any support on that?
No, I've received a tremendous amount of support, and I can gauge that by going on Twitter and Facebook and just reading the posts, which are open for anyone to read. They're on my wall, where 98% of people who responded say they agree and support the boycott, because at the end of the day, one person even put on there that what Russell Simmons did was even worse than what Paula Dean had said, and Don Imus, who call African American Rutgers College basketball team the nappy-headed H word. But many people feel what Russell Simmons did was even worse, because he should have known better.
Wow. That's deep. 800-450-7876 to speak to Najee Ali. And Najee, some people said, and we spoke this morning, and after you got off the air, some people said, why are you attacking Russell Simmons? You don't attack Tommy Hilfiger and the other one who did the polo shirts or whatever that said disparaging things about us. You didn't call for a boycott. Why are you calling for a boycott of Russell Simmons?
I mean, to my understanding, those internet rumors and urban legends, as we call them, that according to what I've learned from other folks, when that issue's come up, is the things that they were alleged to have said against black folks, they never said, Carl. And one of the people that I think even made mention of that was Oprah Winfrey. So we have to make sure that when we talk about stuff, we're educated on what's fact and what's fiction. And certainly, I hold everybody accountable when it comes to defending African Americans, whether it's other people who I feel disrespect us or whether it's our own people.
You know, and not everyone wants to discuss this issue, because Russell's got friends in high places, and they're afraid to even discuss it. But hey, I think when you attack black people, you need to know if you're for us or you're against us. Earlier we talked about we spoke with Armstrong Williams earlier about this, and Armstrong was defending him. And Armstrong says, listen, he runs a network, he runs a channel. He doesn't know every single thing that goes on. He was looking at it from a business perspective, so he doesn't know every single thing that's on the radio, just like, maybe Radio 1. But they don't know what's on every single radio station they own. He was looking at that angle until one of the news breaks. He went and saw the tape, and he was outraged. He says, "Man, this is disgusting," and rightly so. So at some point, but he stopped short of calling for a boycott, but he did say that we should judge Russell by the body of his work, but he stopped short of saying that we should boycott all his stuff. So how do you fall on that? Do you think you agree with Armstrong? We should judge him on the body of work, and this may have been a miscue?
Well, I think at the end of the day, Carl, Russell has some good, but he's also done some things that have been real questionable. Now, I'm not talking about just disrespect to Harriet Tubman, even the rest card, where I felt takes advantage of poor people by trapping them into these high finance rates. So for me, Carl, the boycott that we're calling for is for those that feel they don't want to support Russell. Obviously, you can't make it mandatory. But for me, I can't support anyone financially that harms black community and our legacy under no circumstances, Carl.
And Najee, after you left us this morning, I spoke to Harriet Tubman's great-grand niece and her mother, named Rita Daniels, and both of them were appalled about what they saw on the tape. In fact, Rita's mother's a lot older, and she said she wouldn't let her mother see it because it was too despicable. And she's basically saying that she's calling on Russ to wrong the right. He has not yet called them and apologized. And I said the irony is that Harriet Tubman probably freed Russell's ancestors, and here you're going to put her down like that? I mean, it's just crazy.
No, it is crazy, and that's why we just can't let this go, Carl. We just can't let Russell say, "I apologize, I'm sorry," and then we'll move on. Next week we'll be talking about something else. We have to make sure that we make Russell Simmons an example, because at the end of the day, Harriet Tubman risked her life saving hundreds of slaves. And that type of heroism should never be disrespected by anybody. It should never be joked about, Carl.
Agreed. 800-450-7876. What are your thoughts? Did you agree with Najee Ali of boycott all of Russell Simmons' stuff? And also the funding, as he mentioned, DreamWorks, the people who run DreamWorks were behind this. And you know what? Somebody also mentioned, Najee, that if he had done a piece with Anne Frank in some sexual encounter with the Nazis, do you think DreamWorks would have written a check and let him do that?
Well, of course not, Carl. They would have ran Russell Simmons out of town and destroyed his career permanently, because the Jews, they don't play that. When you disrespect their people, they have the Anti-Defamation League and the other groups that can isolate you and destroy you and bring you to accountability. Black folks need to have that as well, Carl, and that's why we try to do what we can in L.A. As far as sounding the alarm when these issues happen. But at the end of the day, Carl, the one thing I also noticed with the Django controversy, with Tarantino and Harvey Weinstein, how they had slave Django down and thought it was okay with that until we called for a boycott, and they immediately took those dolls off the market. So I can say one thing is that when we speak out forcefully enough, we can make change if we demand change, Carl.
I agreed, because you did lead that boycott of those Django dolls. I just wonder how many people are really upset about that film clip. Because is the video still on the internet now? Do you know?
Well, to my understanding, they're trying to take them down as quickly as possible, but the video's out there. It's on YouTube and people's personal websites, so it's hard to police. And then once it's out there, Carl, it's out there. So people are seeing it on different sites. It's just not on Russell Simmons' site any longer.
All right, let me give the number again, 800-450-7876. Speak to Najee Ali, leading a boycott of Russell Simmons for that sex tape on Harriet Tubman. What are your thoughts? Let's go to line 2. Gary's joining us from D.C. Gary, you're on with Najee Ali.
Yes, good evening. I agree with the boycott 100%. I think that we need to go even further than that. I think that we need to boycott in front of his businesses. Even if we have to boycott in front of this house, we do have to send a very strong message to him or anybody else who have the balls to disrespect some of our important heroes. We have to We have to send that message to them that we are not going to tolerate this regardless of who do it. And so I commend him 100%. I'm in support of it. I've never support Mr. Simmons. I never will, and I'm for the boycott 100%.
All right. Thanks, Gary. And Najee, earlier we had a discussion you pointed out, too, that Rosa Parks was disrespected in that barbershop movie as well.
Well, she was, and we spoke out then, Carl, years ago. I think you were in L.A. then, but Reverend Sharpton, Reverend Jackson, myself, we were criticized for defending Rosa Parks, the mother of the civil rights movement, or one of the mothers. So I think we're seeing a dangerous pattern with black entertainers in the hip-hop industry, disagreeing the memory and the legacy of people that we should love and cherish, black heroes and heroes. I can even remember 2 or 3 months ago where
hold that thought, Najee. Right. Hold that thought. I'll let you talk about Lil Wayne on the other side. We got to take a break for traffic and weather here on WOL. 800-450-7876. Number to call. Speak to Najee Ali about this Harriet Tubman sex tape. That's what it is, pornography. We'll take your phone calls right after the... And thank you for staying with us, folks. And our guest, Najee Ali, political activist in Los Angeles. They had a press conference this morning calling for the boycott of Russell Simmons, all of the things that Russell Simmons is involved in. And let me tell you something. If a white person had done this, all our civil rights groups would be out in arms. They'd be marching. There'd be picket signs already. But right now, they've been kind of quiet. Najee, what's going on here? Why do you think they're being quiet?
Because at the end of the day, Carl, I know this for a fact because I did a Google search on Russell Simmons. He's worth over $300 million. So Russell Simmons also highly connected to the major civil rights leaders. He's a leading donor to many of them, including Nation of Islam leader Minister Louis Farrakhan, Reverend Al Sharpton, Reverend Jesse Jackson, NAACP. So they don't want to bite the hand that feeds them. And at the end of the day, Carl, we can't look for them to say anything because they're not going to open their mouths and have the type of leadership we need on this effort. That's why the grassroots has led this movement by speaking out against Russell Simmons and organizing effectively to make him an example so he won't, or anyone else won't think of doing this again.
Some people said that you're giving him, publicity because of this. Now everybody's gonna know he's got a video tube or YouTube, whatever he's got, which you want to boycott. Now they're going to be searching the web, trying to see this thing and give him more publicity. More publicity equals cash, more money for him. Do you agree with that?
Well, I don't agree with that, Carl, not at all, because at the end of the day, his legacy and his reputation should be worth more than a dollar amount. And that's something that you can't purchase and buy, is a good reputation and a good legacy in your own community. So I think the bad he's done far outweighs any good he's done in this situation. But at the end of the day, Carl, we can't really worry about publicity. We have to worry about taking a stand for our people, the same way the Jewish community does, which I respect tremendously. When you do take something against them, they take a stand against you no matter what. We have to do the same thing, Carl.
And Russell, you still got time to call the descendants of Harriet Tubman and call them personally. We did it. I'm sure you could do it. You've got more resources than we. You could call them and personally apologize because, the longer you take, the worse it's going to look. And just think, would you like somebody to do a parody of your mother like that? Folks, what are your thoughts? 800-450-7876. Go to line 2. Sister Sarah's in Texas.
Yes, Carl, greetings to you and greetings to the WL audience. Is this Mr. Ali? Is he on the phone?
Yes, he is.
Najee Ali.
Yeah, okay, Mr. Najee. This is very disturbing to me, and I don't want to give it much legs for it to run around the internet because we are promoting and pushing Russell Simmons as well as all of these others because I happen to go on social media and I pulled up and see who funded him, and we see that, of course, DreamWorks and Vivendi, which controls the music industry, and DreamWorks, we know, is owned by Steven Spielberg. So we are seeing the so-called Jewish hands in this, and this is very offensive. It's very insulting, and I'm tired of black people getting on these airwaves and asking for an apology. An apology for what? What is an apology going to do? We should be so doggone tired of people coming on and apologizing for us. When you do something, I don't want no apology. Because what you're doing is an apology is damage control for you to cover your behind so that you can go on and do business as usual. We should be sick and tired of asking for doggone apologies.
And so you don't think, so what should we do then, Sister Sarah, if we don't ask for an apology, just let it, because you know what's going to happen. Then the white man's going to say, look, they denigrated Harriet Tubman. Nobody said anything. Let's do something nasty about Martin Luther King. Let's do something nasty on Malcolm X. So you know, because the black community don't care about their heroes.
No. We have other punitive ways that we can handle business. We have other ways of doing it. But getting on the airwaves when somebody Latino, somebody white, or somebody black do something offensive, and they all know better. These are not children. These are grown folks who know better. And they do these things, and all we get, and we hoot and holler, and we ask for, they need to do an apology like they did with the Emmett Till family. No. We need to stop asking for these doggone apologies, because apologies don't mean nothing anymore. That word apology don't mean anything, because people use it as a facade, as a band-aid in order to cover their behind when the heat gets on them, and then they go back and slinker out here like a doggone snake and get back to business as usual. Russell Simmons know better. He supposedly have 2 daughters that he is raising. What kind of example is this that you are setting to say that you're going to take a venerated ancestor like Miss Tubman and you're going to put her in a video like this? This woman didn't coerce nobody white to go into no sexing or whatever the case might be. These people were raped. She didn't have no status or equal footing to say, okay, I can trade myself for whatever. You're trivializing what went on these plantations. Same thing as what Jefferson did with Sally Hemings. That was not no consensual relationship.
All right, because he was a power thing with the master.
Power base.
Here's the deal. So, Sister Sarah, we get that. It was a power thing. Our ancestors, the female ancestors, were raped. He made light of it. Having her a strap on. You know, it was just crazy. It was total pornography. But what do we do? That's my question.
You know what, Carl, as I said over and over again, we don't have no standards in our community. We let any and everything go, from the rappers to these entertainers. We let them take us for a joke. They use us to elevate themselves. You know, we like booster rockets, Carl. We boost these people. We boost them and send them up into space, and we all know what happened with booster rockets once you clear the atmosphere phase. You drop off somewhere out there in the Indian Ocean, the Pacific Ocean, because you no longer need it, until when the same white people that he embeds with, when they come after his behind, then all of a sudden, we need to come with here, we need to form this race solidarity. Oh, the white people are after me, it's a racist thing, and all this other blah, 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 and we fall for it every doggone time. Some of these people need to get out on this limb, need to cut that branch off and let their behind fall where it may.
So Kim, tell me what you think we should do, because I hear all the emotion and the rhetoric, but tell me.
Well, Carl, if I can add this, because there's only one thing we can do. And everyone should acknowledge this. We have to boycott. We have to go after their corporate sponsors and not support their business interests. The only way you can stop them and hurt them is by cutting them off and hurting them financially. That's the only way.
Sister Sarah, you agree?
Exactly. We need to do it financially, because the Vivendi Music Capital, BMG, they're the 2 largest distributor of music. All these folks running around here buying this music, like right now we got T.I. and Pharrell and Robin Thicke, who ripped off Marvin Gaye's music and running around here with it. And I know they're trying to say, no, it wasn't a rip-off of Marvin Gaye, that he came up with an original. No, you didn't come up with an original. You took Marvin Gaye music and you ran with it. And we have these 2 Negroes out here defending it, going to court, so that the gay estate don't get some kind of residual for what they're doing. You see, we don't learn, Carl, and this stuff is making my blood boil on this good weekend.
Well, Sister Sarah, I'm going to let you go. So I don't want you to get a stroke now. Please don't take care of yourself. Don't let these folks get the best of you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Have a good weekend, y'all.
All right, you too. But and that's another issue I think that you maybe have to look into now. G. Ali, you out there in L.A. I know you know the gay family. And that whole thing of Robin Thicke's record, because as soon as I heard that record, I thought about Marvin Gaye as soon as I heard that track, but that's another story. 800-450.
I'm going to call her tonight. I'm actually close friends with Marvin's family, so that'll be another show topic.
Yeah, sure. And tell Z I said hi when he talked to her. 800-450-7876, number to call. Speak to Najee Ali. Let's go to Kevin. Kevin's in Kansas. Kevin, what are your thoughts on this whole thing with Harriet Tubman?
Good afternoon, Carl, and your guest. My thoughts are, in addition to a boycott, the black community, we really need to ostracize anybody who does anything that is detrimental to our community, because we have to hit them in the pocket, and we also have to make examples of our own people that we will not allow you to do this kind of thing and still welcome you in our events throughout the year, because we have to let everybody know we don't get just outraged when white people do it, but we will not tolerate it when anyone does anything like this to us.
And that's an excellent point, because I mentioned that we had the discussion earlier this morning, and a sister called up from Cleveland and says, well, you guys don't get upset when the white people do this to us. Why you want to boycott Russell? And that's exactly what you said, Kevin.
Right. Also, I do have a quick question for your guest, just because Minister Farrakhan has always spoken out, no matter if people have supported him in the past or have had friendly relationships with the Nation of Islam, regardless if you're black, white, Arab, or whatever. So I'd like to ask your guest, why would he lump Minister Farrakhan in with others that they get money, so therefore they're going to be silent? I would not agree with that. I would like to ask him to explain that further.
Okay.
Oh, I can answer that question. No, not a problem. Has Minister Farrakhan said anything about Russell Simmons disrespecting Harriet Tubman? That's my question to you. Has Minister Farrakhan said anything condemning what Russell Simmons said about Harriet Tubman?
What I would say is, and I would...
That's a yes or no question.
Wait a minute. Minister Farrakhan doesn't chase after being...
Okay, I'll tell you what. Hang on, guys. Kevin, hold up, Kevin, because we got to take a break here. And when you come back, I'll let you respond to Najee Ali. You two can join the conversation, folks. It's 800-450-7876. We'll take your calls right after this short break. And thank you for staying with us, folks. And again, you can reach us on Facebook and Twitter at carlnelsonshow.com. We're discussing the Harriet Tubman sex tape produced by a good friend over there, Russell Simmons. What are your thoughts? Najee Ali's joining us from Los Angeles. He announced a boycott of Russell Simmons, all the stuff that Russell is saying, and all the businesses he's involved in, actually. And Najee also said that DreamWorks were actually financing this thing. And the question, and before we go back to Kevin in Kansas, the question is, would they have financed Anne Frank having sex with one of the Nazis during the Holocaust? And you know what the answer to that is. So why would they do this? Or why would, I don't even know why Russell Simmons would do this, but Russell, you got to man up and you just got to apologize to these people. They're living, breathing folks that you have hurt. And a lot of people, too, that are not blood related to Harriet Tubman are very incensed at what you did. Kevin, let's go back to Kevin and Najee Ali. Kevin?
Yes, sir. Like I was trying to say, Minister Farrakhan has a consistent track record of denouncing our aberrant behavior, regardless. And he's harder on black people than he is on white people. So I am sure, like going back to the early 90s when he was on the Donahue show, and Donahue tried to get him to denounce Eddie Murphy for his language. The minister said that he denounces all of that type of language, but he's not going to take that form on the public airways to denounce him. He would call him personally and correct him. So I'm sure that the minister called Russell Simmons to chastise him on his action and to give him some guidance in terms of what he needs to do to make this right. Now, whether Russell does it or not, that's up to him. But my question to your guest was more about why would he think that the minister would take money, therefore he would be silent? Thank you.
Okay, that's a fair question. Najee?
Because you don't bite the hand that feeds you, and right now you're assuming what Minister Farrakhan might do to find some reason about to Russell Simmons. We don't know that for a fact. So what I'm saying, and I'll say it again, so far we have not had any major black leader or organization speak out forcefully about what Russell Simmons did concerning Harriet Tubman. And I've been monitoring social media of all these leaders and the organizations, but they've been real quiet. It's been the regular folks, the grassroots leaders like myself and others nationwide who've been at the forefront and speaking out, and not so much denouncing Russell Simmons, but been denouncing what he did.
Right. And you know, folks, it's not a denunciation of Russell Simmons, the person. It's what Russell's, and this is what Ali's saying, is the actions of what Russell did and the aftermath. He put out a an apology of sorts. He put out a written apology, but he's yet to apologize to Harriet Tubman's relatives. And he can't say he can't find them because we found them, and they're very, very upset because they have children too. And everybody knows the image that Harriet Tubman has, and to see this image on TV, my question to Russell, just what were you thinking? I mean, just what were you thinking? I understand creativity and the First Amendment, and I understand all of that, you know, and that you're a comedian, you got license to do all that kind of stuff. But if you start with that, where do you stop? Do we see is next, is it Malcolm X or Martin Luther King? Are you going to do a parody of them next? And if we don't put our foot down, folks, I'm telling you, if Russell doesn't do it, somebody else is going to do it who doesn't look like Russell, and they're going to point their finger and say, see, you didn't say nothing when Russell did it, so why are you guys upset now? I think he has to come forward, and he has to do it quickly and get it over with and move on. Najee, your thoughts on people who are now saying that, you know, all he has to do is do an apology and move on. The family says no, they need it's got to be more than an apology because. And I trying to explain.
He has to do apologies not enough, Carl. He needs to personally apologize. He needs to set up some type of scholarship fund if he's truly sorry to pay some type of penalty for insulting Harriet Tubman and her legacy. He has enough resources. He could easily contribute to a black women's college, a scholarship in her name. So I feel just to come out and say, hey, I'm sorry, and try to forget about it the next day is not enough, and that's why we have rejected publicly his half-hearted and weak apology, because when you read the statement, Carl, that's not even a real apology when you read his whole statement. He's trying to justify it.
Right, and you're not wrong with that because Harriet Tubman's relatives also said it was a weak apology. Again, and I don't want it to sound like and they didn't ask for any money. They did not ask for money, so let's not think that because he's a millionaire, people are going to try and get him for money. It wasn't about that. They didn't mention that. They just think what he did tarnished her legacy, and he's got to figure out a way to make it right. And they didn't say anything. They didn't, and trust me, they said if people want to boycott, that's their business. They're not interested in that. I'll tell you that. They said that Russell needs to repair a legacy that he's damaged, and that's all they're asking for. 800-450-7876. Let me give that number again. 800-450-7876. What are your thoughts? Do you agree with Najee Ali with his boycott of Russell Simmons? Is that going too far? Should Russell come up and do a better mea culpa than that half-hearted press release that he put out? And do you think this is insult to the legacy of one of our sheroes? And I'm just saying it. Who's next? Is it Malcolm? You going to get upset when it's Malcolm or Martin Luther King? You know, and nobody's saying it, and Najee's correct. The silence is deafening, and the whole country's watching these so-called civil rights leaders. The silence is deafening. They're not saying anything. Let's go to line 2. Fred's in D.C. Fred, what are your thoughts?
Good evening to both of you. Yes, I think a boycott and beyond. And I wish you could give the age of Russell Simmons. There's no excuse for what happened. And I want you to comment on, it wasn't that much of an uproar about what Lil Wayne's, how he referenced Emmett Till in a derogatory way from the civil rights community.
But you know what? A lot of the entertainment fellas got upset about that, and they spoke out about Lil Wayne. They chastised Lil Wayne. So far, we haven't. Russell Simmons is their pal. They're not speaking out. The silence is deafening.
No, well, I wasn't. You know, speaking of the entertainment industry, I'm saying a lot of the civil rights leaders didn't condemn Lil Wayne.
Oh, you're right about that too.
So what's that saying about them? And just think of this. I mean, any little thing that a conservative says about President Obama, like you said, the silence is amazing on this right here. Because if this had been a conservative that would have done the same thing, all hell would have broke loose.
You're right. And Fred, you're absolutely. Najee, do you agree?
No, I agree 100%, Carl, because the one thing I remember very clearly, when Don Imus, the shot jock, made his famous infamous comments denigrating the workers' women's basketball team by calling them the nappy-headed H-word, we had civil rights leaders tripping over themselves, being in front of the TV camera, press conference, demanding an apology, calling for boycotts against Imus, yet we have not heard one leader, national major leader, say anything concerning what Russell Simmons did. In my personal opinion, what Russell Simmons did for Harriet Tubman, and her legacy is much, much worse than what Diane Ahmed said about the college students.
And if I could comment on that, the statement that Amos made, Damon Wayman said the same thing. He said they may be nappy. He said they may not be hoes, but they're definitely nappy-headed. There was nothing said from the black community when he made that statement.
Well, maybe the black community is just about waking up, Fred. Maybe. Maybe this the whole Trayvon thing, and maybe it's just to get us out of our slumber. You know, that we're tired of being stepped on. You know.
I certainly hope so.
All right. Thanks, Fred. Thanks for your call.
Day.
You know, and Dr. Claude Anderson mentioned, says, yeah, they do that to you because they know you won't respond. That's why they take. It's a question I ask all the time. Why do they always pick on us? You know, they never pick on any other group. And and another thing that Dr. Anderson says, they can always find one of us to sell us out. And Harriet Tubman knows that. And she's probably turning over in her grave now after all these years because we still got some sellouts out there. What are your thoughts? 800-450-7876. Go to Ralph in Philadelphia. Ralph, you're on with Najee Ali. Is Ralph there on line 3?
Yes. You hear me?
Yes. Go ahead,
you
Ralph.
Hear me?
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good afternoon, fellas. Hey, look, what I wanted to say is, Russell Simmons, what he did was despicable, but also let's boycott Steven Spielberg films. He finances it. And, you know, it's like they have no problem going to our community, finding these Larry Elders, these Armstrong Williams. I'm going to include him, too. And I mean, you know, this new chick. So Steven Spielberg is equally responsible for this also. I would say boycott his movies, stop supporting him also. And I just wanted to make that real short and sweet because, like you said, they are finding these sellouts. Look behind Lil Wayne, find out who's financing him, who's financing Cedric the Entertainer, and let's go after them because they're finding these sellouts all over the place, and that's all I had to say, fellas.
All right. Thanks, Ralph. Thanks for your comments. Hey, well, we got to take a break. We got a traffic and weather update. Also want to remind you that Attorney JoJo Davis is going to join us out of Orlando and get his take on it. He's going to, you know, look into the legal aspect of what went down with this Harriet Tubman sex tape, a pornographic tape, if you will. Folks, if you didn't get a chance to see it, try to check it out on the web. 800-450-7876. We'll take your calls right after.
And now back to the Carl Nelson Show.
On Washington, D.C.'s 1450.
1450 WOL Radio.
And thank you for staying with us, folks. And, of course, you can reach us on Facebook and as well as Twitter at carlnelsonshow.com. Our guest is political activist Najee Ali in Los Angeles, calling for a boycott of Russell Simmons for that movie that he did, a video, actually, of Harriet Tubman, a sex movie, if you will. If you haven't seen it, please, I don't think you should see it. But anyway, it's disgusting. And he apologized on paper. He has not apologized to the family of Harriet Tubman. We spoke to them earlier, and they said that half-hearted apology would not suffice. They say he's got to make this right. They're not asking for money. So, Russell, they're not asking for money, but I think you should reach out to them because you've got a mother. I hope you had a mother. At least I know you had a mother, and you would not like your mother to be depicted the way that you depicted their family like that. And the irony is, folks, and I keep saying this, Harriet Tubman may have freed Russell Simmons' relatives. You know, she may have just done that. And you just turn over in her grave to see that you, gifted as you are in what you do, put this on tape. You could have done something more positive. And then had the nerve to tweet that it was the funniest thing that you ever saw. And when the heat came, he took that tweet down. But he said he thought it was funny. I looked at it and I was just totally disgusted. 800-450-7876 to speak to Najee Ali. Let's go to line 5. Carl's in Arizona. Carl, you're on with Najee Ali.
How y'all doing, fam?
We good.
Okay, Carl. You know, one of the things I was looking at, you know, we've been under this kind of siege for the longest, ever since there's been the idea of there being some value on our images. I think back when Motown left Detroit and moved out to Los Angeles, and how people seen the need to control our images, and we all know that they are being controlled. But I think also we need to look at, we didn't say anything when Luther Campbell and Two Live Crew started all of the profanity and all of the other stuff that right now we're finding that's not good for us. And, you know, a lot of times we don't never speak, but I hope that 2013 could continue to be the year that
we can critically and analytically look at our situation because, everywhere I go, everybody trying to talk to us that comes here from everywhere. And when they look at the problem that we have, they feel like they can solve it and they can make them some cash off it. But I hope that the mindset.
Well, let me interrupt you. What about Russell Simmons? What about this skit that he did about Harriet Tubman? Have you seen it? And if so, if not, you've heard about it. Does it make you? Are you incensed about it, or you agree that it was funny, or you think you don't see a problem with it?
No. Those of us who are trying to correct ourselves, no, we're looking for perfection. We're not looking for no kind of imperfection. And I think when we get opportunity to dialogue about certain situations, I think all of us look at it differently. And I think all of us deserve to add our little variable to the thing so that we can look at something a little bit bigger, because one of the problems I see, Carl, many times we just go after a situation for a moment and we don't look at continuously removing this stuff that's bothering us all over, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, we do lose focus quite a bit. And Carl, thanks for your call, joining us from Arizona. And Najee Ali, what's the long-term plan? You mentioned a boycott, but Carl mentioned a good thing too, because we sort of have short memories, and then we'll be upset, and then we'll move on to the next thing.
Well, the long-range plan is to continue the advocacy and just taking a stand. I said earlier, when something happens to the Jews and their community, they have leaders and activists and organizations that will take a stand immediately to make sure it doesn't happen again. So we want to try to create that same institution in the black community where it will stop happening to us, Carl. Because one thing, in my personal opinion, people of our generation may say that Dr. King may have been the greatest African-American ever, or Malcolm X. But for me, Carl, when you really think about it historically, my personal opinion is Harriet Tubman, based on what she did and the time that she lived in, where her life was in danger every day of her lifetime. And yet she still risked it, freeing hundreds of slaves when she didn't have to, Carl. So to me, Harriet Tubman is the greatest African-American in history. So we can't allow her to be disrespected and her legacy to be disrespected by anybody.
You're absolutely right, because a lot of us owe our existence to Harriet Tubman, because all those slaves that she freed, she made it, and Najee probably freed our relatives, while we're here, and you got, I just don't get it what Brother Russell was thinking. So hopefully, he'll do it right. I think he'll do right, because I think he knew what he did just didn't add up. 800-450-7876. Go to James on line 3 in D.C. James, you're on with Najee Ali.
Hello, how you doing today?
We're good.
That's good. When I first seen the video clip about what Russell Simmons did, I said he's an idiot. He's a clown. I mean, he's too old for this nonsense. This gentleman, he has to be at least 50 years old. I mean,
James, let me interrupt you for a second. You didn't chuckle? You didn't smile when you saw that?
I didn't. I thought it was just horrendous, because everything our ancestors went through, getting raped by the slave master, that's already bad enough. And then they have the gentleman in the closet, and that's what took place back then, with the husband there watching his wife get violated, and there was nothing he can do about it. It just, on so many levels, it was just horrendous on so many levels.
Yeah, that's another issue too. The brother in the closet. Powerless.
Powerless. I mean, what do you take from that? I mean, we're supposed to be the ones protecting our women. And it's almost like he's disgracing his ancestors, the people who came before him. I mean, his grandmother's mother, great-grandmother's mother. I mean, it just goes on down the line. I mean, just a total disgrace. I mean, but it seems like the further we get away from the civil rights era, it seems like the worse we're going to be off as black people. I don't care about the status. I don't care about the degrees, how much money blacks make. It just seems like, within that, they just don't have any type of dignity. They just don't have any self-worth, no self-respect. I don't care about how much money you make. At the end of the day, at least have some self-worth. Self-worth goes a long way to any money, to any type of status. So, we're in a poor state. We're in a poor state right now, if you ask me.
Yeah. Well, we can do better, but the only persons that are going to do it is us, James. And thanks for your call, because the other folks are not going to help us, and we got to deal with the sellouts in our crowd as well. 800-450-7876. Let's go to line 4. Calvin's in Tennessee. Calvin, you're on with Najee Ali.
Carl, I saw the video. I went to YouTube and I saw it.
Uh-huh.
And I'm trying to determine, you said when Russell first saw it, he thought it was funny. I don't understand what the humor was in that. I didn't see anything funny about it at all.
He chuckled. You know, he tweeted that was the funniest thing he saw. And then when the heat started, he took down that tweet.
Well, I listen to the Comedy Channel sometimes, and sometimes I have to turn it off because sometimes these comedians, what they think is funny is, I don't think it's funny, but my opinion about that video, I don't see how he could absolutely in any way say he saw anything funny about that. That should have been disgusting to him when he first looked at it. Because as you said earlier, if that had been his mother or one of his daughters, I don't see how he could have found that funny.
He's just got to man up and call, because I mentioned earlier that I spoke to Harriet Tubman's great-great-grandniece, Rita Daniels, and her mother, the great-grandniece of Harriet Tubman, and they were incensed. They were upset. And I mentioned they're not asking for money. They don't want money. And, folks, if you missed that interview, Radio 1's sister station in Cincinnati, 1320, The Buzz, WDBZ, they're going to replay that, and they're going to start at I think, around 6 o'clock this evening. So you can hear for yourself what Harriet Tubman's relatives think of Russell Simmons and his apology. But, Darren, you're right. I saw it, and I didn't find it funny, and neither did Najee.
Yes, it's disgusting, and he should be ashamed of himself.
Well, let me ask you this. Darren, do you agree with Najee that you should – it's Calvin. I'm sorry, Calvin in Tennessee. Calvin, do you agree with Najee that we should boycott him?
Well, I think we should do something, yes. We should probably – it should be a wake-up call for everybody. One of the things that bothered me, too, is, yes, we should boycott him. There should be some penalty for that. Have you ever read this book called Shakedown that they wrote about Jesse Jackson?
No, I have not. I've heard about it, though.
It's kind of disturbing, when you read that book, and I don't know who was actually the author, but it talks about how a lot of these, who we call our leaders, and I don't know how they got to be our leaders because I never voted any of them in to be leaders for the black community. But it talks about how they basically, with them, it's just about the money more than it is about rights for black people.
Yeah, and that's sad. Calvin, thanks for your call, because we've got to keep moving because we're running up close on a break, and Najee's got to run. Najee, what are your thoughts on what Calvin just said?
So we brought up some good points, and at the end of the day, this is a wake-up call for black America. This is also a litmus test for black leadership. We have many black leaders and organizations that should at least come out publicly and speak up in support of Harriet Tubman and her family, and speak out about what Russell Simmons did publicly, not privately, but publicly, because that's the real tough leadership, is what you'll do in public in front of everybody, not behind closed doors.
All right, hang on, Najee. We got to take a break. When we come back, I want you to give your information how folks can follow you, because I know you're going to stay on top of this. 800-450-7876, number to call to join the conversation. We'll take your calls right after this short break.
Welcome to the Carl Nelson Show.
On Washington, D.C.'s 1450 WOL Radio and live around the world on WOLDCnews.com.
And thank you for staying with us, folks. And our guest is Najee Ali, a political activist in Los Angeles. Najee Ali had a press conference this morning and called for the boycott of Russell Simmons and everything that Russell's involved with. Najee, before you go, did you also call for a boycott of DreamWorks? Because they're financing this
no, we just found out that DreamWorks were involved about maybe an hour before I came on your show. So we just found that out. But obviously that's something that we will talk about. And at the end of the day, Carl, I do want to leave my information for your listeners, because one thing about our leadership in L.A., we're consistent. So the same boycott we called against Quarantino and Weinstein concerning Django and the slave downs, we're simply doing the same thing to Russell Simmons, because we're not going to let anyone dishonor our ancestors and their legacy. So your listeners can contact me on Facebook and Twitter at Najee Ali.
And spell it for us.
Najee, last name is Ali. So I look forward to talking to your listeners on Facebook and Twitter.
All right. Thanks, Najee, because I know you're going to keep on investigating this situation. And hopefully Russell comes to his senses and really apologize and make amends, and we can move on. But thanks again.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. So thanks again, Carl. Take care.
All righty. That's Najee Ali from Project Islamic Hope in Los Angeles, the entertainment capital of the world. They had a press conference this morning, as I mentioned, condemning Russell Simmons for his Harriet Tubman sex tape. And also today we spoke with Rita Daniels, who is the great-great-grandniece of Harriet Tubman, and also her mother, and they were just mortified about that tape. Right now, though, we've got another guest coming in. It's attorney Joseph Haynes Davis, if you will. You may have seen him on TV. He was analyzing the George Zimmerman trial. Attorney Davis, welcome back to WOL.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Carl. As I always tell you, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart, I'm always humbled and honored to be on the program because, honored and honorable broadcasters and broadcast journalists like yourself do well with bringing different perspectives and so forth to different issues to our community, and you should be commended for doing it, and I'm always humbled to have an opportunity to add to the diversity of opinion.
Well, thank you. And that's what we like to do. We like to put the facts out there and let the people make up their minds themselves. You know, it is what it is. Russell Simmons put out this Harriet Tubman sex tape, and he withdrew it. When he saw it first, he said that was the funniest thing he ever saw. And then when the heat started, he pulled down that tweet, and that prompted Najee Ali, a fellow we just had on in Los Angeles, out there in L.A., and they started a boycott. They want to boycott all of Russell Simmons' stuff, and he says he's considering boycotting DreamWorks because they financed this video. I just want to get your thoughts. Boycott, yes or no?
Well, let me first speak to you from a constitutional perspective, because I think that we, forget about the importance of that. Constitutionally, Russell Simmons obviously had the right, and the actors themselves, and I don't know who those actors are, but the producers and so forth, they have the constitutional right to free speech and satire. Satire. Now, the issue for Black Americans becomes, are things so off limits, or are they in a box that should not be touched with the freedoms embodied in the First Amendment? Are things so important and so classic and so reverent that they should not be subject to the freedoms of satire and other freedoms embodied in the First Amendment? I think that is a question that we also need to look at. Granted, when people say, and possibly rightfully so, that the video was in bad taste, how could he do that, this, that, and the other? Bad taste, when it comes to art and free speech, is indeed subjective. And when we think of, quote-unquote, things in the Black community, things that represent the Black community, things that are reverent in the Black community, the question becomes, does that mean that they are off limits to free speech, satire, and so forth? The other question I think about and wanted to set forth on your show is that Black Americans and all Americans need to know that folks like Russell Simmons are going to do what they need to do for their business. His business was the promotion of, this deaf, whatever the apparatus was, some type of new video enterprise that he was launching. You have to realize that Russell Simmons knew that there was going to be some fallout. He knew that this was likely to happen and so forth. And as a result, we have this ongoing debate about not only the product, but it did in fact bring the attention to whatever this new video outlet that he's launching is. He purposefully did this. This is what he does. I would also like to, there are so many issues with this. I would also like to bring the point that hip-hop, and you know Russell Simmons is one of the godfathers of the genre. Hip-hop itself has always challenged the social consciousness, not only on the greater society of America, but within the black community. What has hip-hop brought us? It's brought us, you know, profanity in art and song. It has brought us, arguably, misogyny, sexist type of stuff. It's also, to some degree, reflected violence in our neighborhood. And it has always shocked the consciousness of the free exercise of speech and ideas. And so, to some degree, this is yet another chapter in that era of things related to hip-hop, i.e. Mr. Simmons is a mogul and godfather of the genre. So these are some of the things we also have to think about if we want to think about things critically. Now, in terms of feelings, emotions, and listen, if I were the descendants of the late Miss Tubman, I might be offended too. They have the right to be offended. But I think with a program like yours, Carl, we have to be able to look at all aspects of this type of matter to have a fruitful and bountiful discussion of all things related to this. So my position is really a benign one, because I think I would like to take the role to introduce other issues that are part and parcel to this particular product. Even though Mr. Simmons pulled it, I have a copy of it with my commentary on my website, constitutionally-speaking.com.
All right. Tell you what, let me give out that number again, and we'll see if folks agree with you. 800-450-7876. Attorney Joseph Haynes Davis is our guest, folks, and we're discussing the Harriet Tubman sex tape. So let me get this straight. You're still appalled by the tape, but you are saying that he's constitutionally free to do this kind of stuff, to denigrate our...
Right. Well, he clearly is. I mean, that's no question. In terms of being appalled, I'm not necessarily, quote-unquote, appalled. What I am saying to you is that although personally I might think it is distasteful, the question becomes, do we want to enter a path where we are saying these things are off limits to any type of satire, any type of satire and critical approach to the particular topic, because that in and of itself smacks of oppression. I mean, I've asked the question on my website and on my Facebook page, would you like to see the government censor this type of satire? And I'm raising questions. So I'm not condoning or objecting. And I know you probably got to go to a break, but let me also submit to you this. If you remember, and Mr. Simmons owned Def Jam Records, you remember Public Enemy did, by the time I get to Arizona, okay, when Governor Meekum did not recognize the King holiday, and in that video, Public Enemy bum rushed the governor's mansion and executed the governor. And that brought outrage across the board, even in the so-called black leadership, black civil rights community for that.
All right. Hold it right there, Attorney, because we really got to take a break. We're running late. 800-450-7876 to speak to Attorney Haynes Davis. We'll take your calls, folks.
Back to the Carl Nelson Show.
On Washington, D.C.'s 1450.
1450 WOL Radio.
And thank you for staying with us, folks. And our guest, Attorney Joseph Haynes Davis, mentioned many of you probably saw him during the George Zimmerman trial. He was analyzing the trial for MSNBC. Right now we're discussing the Harriet Tubman sex tape that was done by Russell Simmons. Russell made some sort of an apology, but he has not personally called the relatives of Harriet Tubman about that tape. And before Attorney Haynes Davis got on, Najee Ali just leading a boycott of Russell Simmons. So we want to get your thoughts. Let me give out the number. It's 800-450-7876. That's 800-450-7876. Let's go to Darren in D.C. Darren, you're on with Attorney Joseph Haynes Davis.
Yes, good afternoon, Brother Carl, and good afternoon to the attorney. Well, I agree with Brother Najee Ali and the call for the boycott and economic sanctions against Russell Simmons. I think we clearly have to say that there's certain things in the black community that are off limits in terms of our history, our Ma'afra, our Holocaust. Now, had he done a videotape on Anne Frank, they'd be washing his body up out of the Hudson River or New York River or the New York Bay or New York Harbor by now. So we have to be just as clear as members of the Jewish community. He would be apologizing to the Anti-Defamation League of B'nai B'rith. And so this is why I agree we do need an Anti-Defamation League, a black Anti-Defamation League, to clean up. Because this is clearly not a issue to me of freedom of speech, but it really is trash that was being sold to the public to push Russell Simmons' new Def Jam all-digital YouTube channel. And I think we have to look at who the sponsors are, whether I believe it's one of these mobile companies, whether it's Samsung or T-Mobile. We'll find out and, of course, share that with the family and with the public. But I think we clearly have to send a lesson to Russell Simmons, to the hip-hop community, and to all artists that we have to begin to clean up what is being sold to our women and to our men and to our children. But clearly, I think some of these artists need to just come out of the closet themselves and admit to the public that perhaps they have some sexual perversions if they were willing to try to, again, defame and desecrate the legacy of Harriet Tubman. And I'm here in Baltimore, Maryland, where, of course, the home of Harriet Tubman is on the eastern shore of Maryland. And it would be nice to see Russell Simmons and some of the artists really take a effort and helping to build the museum that's being built for Harriet Tubman right now. I don't know if her family touched on that and talked about that. So that would be something that they could stand for. But many of them really never take a stand, only to stand for maybe a new pair of shoes or some new product that they want to push to the black community for corporate America. So I thank Brother Najee. I want to thank Sister Rosa Clemente, who was the VP Green Party candidate. She was one of the first sisters that I saw tweeting about this on the social network media page, along with Brother Jasiri X, who was a brother that wrote songs, tributes to Trayvon Martin, as well as the Gina Six and Professor Griff, who I've spoken to over the past 24 hours. So I want to thank them because they're some of the few that I know in the hip-hop community that have stepped up and stepped out and have spoken up and spoken out regarding Russell Simmons and those that would look to desecrate the legacy of Harriet Tubman. But we have to be willing to say, Brother Carl, and to your fellow brother attorney there, we got to say certain things are off limits when it comes to our history, and we can't allow anyone, black, brown, red, yellow, or white, to hold them up in a negative way or show them in a negative way, because once they start down that road, then nothing will be sacred in the black community for us to pass on to generations to come.
All right. Thanks, Darren. Counselor, you agree, or you think that freedom of speech?
What he says is understandable and laudable, and he was well spoken with it and has a sound basis for it. I think my role for the purposes of the show is to bring other perspectives, raise other questions, and not necessarily to disagree or agree to right or wrong, but to raise questions. And I think that's the role I feel comfortable with at this point, because at the end of the day, one of the questions again becomes, and I think the young man, the gentleman who just ended the statement so eloquently, the question again becomes, are there things off limits? And the other question that I raise and I ask, would you like to see the government censor this type of freedom? Would you like to see the government censor this type of satire? Let me also add something else to the discussion, if I may, Carl.
Sure.
I would like to read my commentary to your listenership because it's pretty short as to my reaction. I wrote, and again, it's on my constitutionally-speaking.com. I wrote, the video would have had much more social impact for black Americans and across racial lines if the black American male depicted as hiding in the closet with a video camera taping the depicted rape in exchange for freedom would have emerged with a Smith & Wesson M&P 15X semi-automatic so-called assault-style weapon and fired off about 50 rounds from a 100-round magazine into the slave master allegedly raping the Tubman character as depicted in the video. Now, that would have set off a discussion worthy of even more analysis from a social, historical, and First Amendment constitutional perspective. Trust me, that depiction and version would have been worth viewing during prime time and would have sent a very strong message as to any symbolism in present-day social commentary and would have affirmed a strong black American male image as opposed to one hiding in a closet making a video of the depicted rape in exchange for freedom. Now, why did I write that? Because, again, although the video may have been in bad taste for some, it is still free speech, and it requires its own analysis and criticism, not only from a right or wrong perspective, but also from the perspective of the nuances in the very video itself. One of the other subtexts was that she actually had a black male figure in the room not trying to save her from the master, but was hiding in the closet with a video to make the video to allegedly extort the master figure for money, also for the presumptive freedom of slaves. So my thing is that you can have your opinion in terms of taste, distaste, right or wrong, off limits, and so forth, but there are also other subtleties that also must be discussed to me in order for us to have a healthy discussion about the full breadth of amendment, constitutional issues that have to do with our freedom and history as black Americans in this country.
All right, and I like that. That would have been a terrific ending, but I think a lot of people would applaud that ending. And
here we go, though, Carl, but listen to what I said, though, and I did this purposefully. They would applaud it, but they, at the same time, attack, quote-unquote, semi-automatic assault-style weapons, you see? We and so forth. We don't talk about the racist roots of gun control because if you know it from a historical perspective, at the time, we were considered chattel. I mean, this is even, they depicted in 1851, which was 6 years before Dred Scott v. Sanford, which affirmed the fact that black Americans in bondage were not to be considered human. It affirmed that we were chattel. And obviously 1857 is 8 years, my math is horrible, but 8 years before emancipation in 1865. So I look at all of these issues and try to have a discussion on a program like yours because you allow for this, thank goodness. And again, it's the goodness of your intelligence and your integrity and the goodness of the First Amendment that allows us to have a discussion this much in depth about this particular type of topic.
All right. I'll tell you what, I'm going to ask the listeners this, too, when we go back to the phones. Your question that you posed, would you like to see censorship? That's the government censor this type of behavior, this type of movies, this type of programming that Russell Simmons put out. Phone number again is 800-450-7876. Go to KO on line 6 in D.C. KO, you're on with Attorney Joseph Haynes Davis.
This is Justice.
Oh, Justice. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Justice.
Yes, Las Vegas. Now, I'm going to comment on what the government should do. But first, I'd like to say something to the attorney. Good afternoon, sir. Attorney? Yes, sir. Yes, I'd like to know, do you know anything about Thurgood Marshall?
I'll tell you what, hang on, attorney, because we got to take a break. So I'll let you respond on the other side. Justice, stay with us. Folks, we've got to take a quick break. 800-450-7876. We'll take your phone calls right after this short break.
1450 WOL, where information is power.
Thank you for staying with us. And, folks, you can reach us on Facebook and Twitter as well. A lot of you already posted questions there for our guest, Attorney Joseph Haynes Davis, discussing the Harriet Tubman sex tape that was done by Russell Simmons. As I mentioned earlier, I spoke to the descendants of Harriet Tubman, Rita Daniels and her mom, and they're very outraged. They're upset. And it's not like, and they say they're not asking for money, and they think, they just say, he's got to make this right. He attacked her legacy and damaged it. And they want to see him repair that damage that he did to her legacy. And so we've got out of Vegas, we've got calling to speak to the attorney. So I'm going to let him get on right now.
I wanted to go ahead and respond and answer his question.
Yeah, go ahead, attorney.
That was my.
Hang on, Justice. Let me respond to you because you asked him a question before the break.
Yeah, the answer is yes. In fact, I have a big poster of the late Justice Marshall in my office, and have a smaller picture in my, the little foyer of my home. And I am a big fan of the book Warrior at the Bar, Rebel on the Bench. So I am for the most part, a big fan, for lack of better terms, of the late Justice Marshall.
Now, Justice Marshall had oral arguments before the Supreme Court. My point is this. Anyone that should be on Justice Marshall's side as it relates to oral arguments should be on the right side. And let me tell you what I want to say, sir, so I'll be clear about this one. Anyone that is supporting Russell Simmons should be arrested by the black stormtroopers for aiding and abetting the enemy for the destruction of themselves and our people. Justice Marshall had oral arguments before the Supreme Court on behalf of our people. And your remarks today, sir, should be about reparations for black people, not about satire. Now, you did mention just a few minutes ago about chattel slavery, right? Remember that? You did mention that.
Yeah, well
so you know our plight as a people. And so to have...
You want me to respond?
No, I want to finish my comment, and then you can respond.
Okay, no problem. Okay, no problem.
What I'm trying to get across is the urgency for us to be focused and not on satire, but on reparations. You just heard the announcer, the facilitator say how important it is for this family now. They want to be compensated. They have damaged the reputation. That is repairing a damage, and that's why reparation is important also. We cannot support Russell Simmons. He should be arrested for aiding and abetting the enemy. And you, sir, also should be arrested because you're aiding and abetting the enemy also and not having the sight that Marshall had with oral arguments that will lead to the ultimate victory for our people. You can't have it any other way. The government should pay
I just want to know when I'm able to respond to you.
All right, Justice, let him respond. Thanks, Justice. Thanks for your call.
All right. Now, and I understand the outrage, but first let me speak to his use of the term reparations. I would ask Mr. Justice to please read Amendment number 14 of the United States Constitution, which speaks to, in my opinion, the issue of reparations. Okay? My second comment is that just like his opinion is protected by Amendment number 1, i.e. the First Amendment of this country, so is my analysis, my legal analysis, and my speech here on this show. It's just as protected as his, and I do have the right to think for myself just like he does. So just because I don't think like him doesn't make me any less man or any less black man or any less intelligent black man. The third thing I would like to suggest to him is the so-called arrest by, I guess, some presumptive vigilante group that is operative in his mind. It doesn't exist. That will never happen. That is hyperbole. It is rhetorical. And might I say that it is, in fact, ridiculous. But the last point is, save that it was not ridiculous. That is truly why I, as a black American man, embrace Amendment number 2 so strongly. Because if there was some vigilante group that wanted to come after Joseph Haynes Davis because of his First Amendment freedoms of speaking and analyzing a particular matter, if they tried to come get me, they would catch hell. Because I make no mistake, and Mr. Nelson, you know, I've talked about this on your show frequently, and I still do. In fact, I put it in my commentary. I am a strong Second Amendment guy, and I stay armed.
All right. 800-450-7876. Justice, thanks for your call. Let's go to line 1. Celia in D.C. Celia, you're on with Attorney Joseph Haynes Davis.
Hello. First, I just want to thank you guys for letting me have the opportunity to express my voice. First, I want to say that I'm 20 years old. I literally seen the video yesterday, and I'm a big fan of hip-hop. And Russell Simmons, as you know, is the godfather of hip-hop. But as a youth in the hip-hop community, I 100% do not support the video. I was mortified when I seen the video. If we can desecrate our leaders, who else are we going to desecrate next? Are we going to do a Barack Obama sex tape? Are we going to do a Sojourner Truth sex tape? Are we going to do a Martin Luther King sex tape? When will it stop? And when you start to poke fun of your history, you give lane an opportunity for other nationalities and other people, different people around the world to come in and make fun of us. I think it's really interesting for the black people who do defend Russell Simmons. These were the same very people who were just getting on Paula Deen for using the N-word and talk about how she wanted to dress up slaves and have a traditional Southern style wedding. Will get on Paula Deen, will turn around and support Russell Simmons. I think it baffles me, to say the least. And as a black woman, I felt more degraded because we already have to fight stereotypes, not only in real life, but on film. Even in 2013, despite having great actresses like Cicely Tyson, all these different type of actors that have tried to play roles in which we're not, viewed as prostitutes and play strong black roles. And yet in 2013, the director and the actor thought it was appropriate to choose someone, Harriet Tubman, a woman who did over 300 trips to save black people. It thought it was appropriate to put her in a sexualized sense when everything she's done, from her saving black people to being a spy, I can't find the words to really describe how horrified I am. And same thing as one of the previous callers said, if that had been Anne Frank and a Nazi, if Russell Simmons would have came out and do a press conference. So it's like, if you view your people in this way and you give the green light to do this, what else will you green light on the behalf of our people? And if we don't hold ourselves accountable, who will? We're as a black community, I know it's so quick to point to the white man about what he's done to us, but we never want to put the mirror and look at ourselves. And this time, Russell Simmons, I feel like, in my humble opinion, should be held accountable. I think one of the things he could do to make amends is tell fun a biopic on Harriet Tubman. It has not been done. How come we have not had a feature film on Harriet Tubman?
So, let me interrupt you for a second.
Let me ask you this. Do you think,
go ahead,
do you think the government should censor it? Do you think, ma'am, do you think that should be censored by the government?
I think that's a separate issue. Every law, as you know, as a lawyer, there's a statute of limitations. It's limits on everything. So regardless of whether it's
let me just ask you though, and I don't mean to belabor the point, but I do respectfully ask you, do you think that the government should censor this type of work?
I think that it has nothing to do with the government. It has to do with the people who's in control. That's just because you have the freedom to do something doesn't mean that that's necessarily correct. People have the freedom to sell drugs. That doesn't mean that they should do that. People have the freedom to go out and do different.
Selling drugs is illegal. This is illegal.
Right, it's illegal, but you have the freedom and that opportunity to do it. Just because you have an opportunity to do it with anything you have to be responsible. And Russell Simmons being in the spotlight and being the representative of hip hop, he should be responsible with the platform that he has. That's my whole point.
Let me ask you
no loopholes in. There are no loopholes in moral. Either you are or you're not. So either you are or not. There's no loophole. There's no legal loophole in being moral. There's nothing, in my opinion, no disrespect to you, sir, that you're going to tell me that's going to justify what he did. That has nothing to do with
I'm not asking to justify anything. I'm just asking questions. I'm asking questions and listening to answers. So I guess my question is that you are saying that you would like to have seen Russell Simmons have the same moral compass as you do.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that if you know your history, if you look at the people who know their history, they don't desecrate their history. That's what I'm saying. I think that's what's wrong with a lot of the black people here. We get these nice jobs, we get our college education, and we claim we know this, we know that, but we forget about our history. And if a person who truly knows their history and he comes from the slums, like he said he comes from, and he understands what that means, and if you truly knew your history, you wouldn't be so quick to choose somebody, especially like her, a woman, extraordinary.
Okay, well, hang on, guys, because we got to take a break. Attorney Ansley, because I got a question for you as well. Folks, you can join the conversation at 800-450-7876. Take your calls right after this short break.
$14.50 WOL, where information is power.
1450 WOL Radio.
And thank you for staying with us, folks. And, of course, you can reach us on Facebook and Twitter at carlnelsonshow.com. Our guest is Attorney Joseph Haynes Davis. As I mentioned earlier, you may have seen him on the MSNBC. He was analyzing the George Zimmerman trial for the cable network. And we have a guest, Celia, out of Washington, D.C., young lady. And let me ask you this, Celia, because you said you were appalled at the tape. Were you appalled just as much as being of the hip-hop generation of the stuff that Russell Simmons' record label puts out as well? Were you that outraged as well, or this is the first for you?
No, this is not the first for me at all. I'm outraged at any time. I think I'm more outraged when I see any black person do anything that makes us look bad, considering all the negative stereotypes that we've had to fight over all of these years. I'm not one of those people that just piecemeal events, and that's why I brought up the Paula Deen situation. I hold each and every person accountable, and I think in my opinion, I hold black people more accountable because, especially like I said earlier, Russell Simmons is an icon, and he is a hip-hop icon. He has a form in which he has helped many hip-hop artists come out and make better for themselves and their family, and since you had the opportunity, he should be responsible with his platform. And I think, like I said, if he was really in touch with his history, I think he and the producers, the directors, and even the actors and actresses would have stepped back, I think, in my opinion, would have said, I don't think this is the right thing to do. Even with some of the elements of the parody, I thought it didn't really make any sense. In 1851, still photos were barely being made. So for you to have, and I understand it is a parody, but it just didn't really make any sense.
Well, let me interrupt you for a second. Does it warrant a boycott?
I think it does warrant a boycott because I feel like how many more of these instances do we have to continue to endure? Just a couple of more months ago, Lil Wayne, if I quote the line correctly, he said, "I'll beat it up in the chill." So it's obviously a disconnect in the hip-hop community. Why would you choose someone, yet again, another event that traumatized Black America? The photo, every time I see it, almost brings me to tears. Why would you choose something like that, another historical event, and use it as a metaphor to, yet again, surrounding sex? So obviously it's a disconnect with our history. So that's why I'm appalled about it. And the pure fact that, yet again, we have another black woman being used as a sexual tool, and the black man is being cowardice and cannot defend his black woman, that bothers me as a 20-year-old youth. So what message are you sending to the rest of the hip-hop community, the young boy at home who doesn't have his father, that it's, it's okay to do this to a woman? And what are you saying to the young little black girl who doesn't have their mother or their father, that the only thing I'm worth is laying down, and I have to lay down with a white man to get anything? This is many different factors that's going on here, psychological factors that's going on here. So that's why I'm upset about it. And that's why I said it's not about the government censoring anything. It's about you having a platform. And granted, while you may have the freedom to do something, even with having your freedom, you have to be responsible with your freedom. And I'm going to hold Mr. Russell Simmons accountable. You have two daughters. Would you have liked to see your daughter act out a role like that? I don't think so.
All right, Celia, thank you, and you well put, eloquently put. The attorney may disagree with you, but I thank you for your thoughts. And it's good that we have some young people who
and let me say this. Listen, I agree with her expressing her opinion. I think that again, what I want your listeners to understand for today, you're not going to get an objection from me, nor are you going to get a condemnation from me. I've already stated my, my analysis, for lack of better terms, of my opinion, which I put on my website. But I think that in order to have a good discussion for the benefit of your show, my role today is to raise other ancillary issues, like the young lady just left, about the emasculation of the black male. Again, my commentary was he should have come out with, an assault weapon style rifle and just unloaded 50 rounds into the slave master. I mean, again, I'm trying to raise issues for discussion for this particular show. In other words, I'm more of a conduit as opposed to a person who's going to come on and condemn something that is protected under freedom of speech, but at the same time, it might be distasteful. Listen, Harriet Tubman helped black people escape the greatest crime against humanity ever. Okay? So I get it. And don't think I don't get it for one moment.
All right. I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and take some more calls here. The number to call, speak to our guest attorney, Joseph Haynes Davis, is 800-450-7876. And let's see who we have got on hold. We've got Freedom in D.C. on line 3. Freedom.
Hey, Carl, yeah. Okay, thank you, Carl. I would just tell you, man, look, that is the very question that I think we need to be, look at it, which is if it was an AK-47 in the hands of the guy in the closet and, he turned out and shot the slave master, the question is, why was that not the scenario? And, your previous guest, Najee Ali, answered that question because this was a venture backed by DreamWorks, Jewish producers or financiers, and we got to look at that. I mean, that's the point. I think that's the whole point.
Let me just add something here, brother, real quick, not to cut you off, and then we go back. But I also want to add in my opinion, the reason why that was not added is because Russell Simmons is pro-infringement and anti-gun. Now, you go ahead and continue. I just wanted to put that out there to marinate. That ain't where his head is, but go right ahead.
Well, again, this is why Najee Ali is correct. So if you have black folk like Russell Simmons, who I don't agree is the godfather of hip-hop, I can explain that if anybody wants to, challenge me on that. But, you have folk like him being used by Jewish backers. It's his responsibility to look at what content he's being asked or financed to produce. And if he doesn't, suffer the consequences. So, Najee Ali is correct. So my question is to Carl, I heard Carl say something. He said I'm not sure who it is, I just want to know. Who saw this video and thought it was the funniest thing that they've ever saw? And I'll tell you why I'm asking that.
All right, that was Russell
Simmons. The answer. It was, in fact, Russell, as it was reported, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so if Russell Simmons, listen to me, please be clear. If Russell Simmons saw this video and said it was the funniest thing he has ever saw, not only should we boycott him, but we should condemn this man, right, to the highest degree that the conscious and the revolutionary and the progressive forces in the black community could condemn him. Clearly, he is a grown man. It's his
Let me ask a question. Let me ask this question.
Hold on. If he wants to make money, as he has done, off the black community, we must now begin to know that not only in response to the Trayvon Martin case, the Oscar Grant case, the Ayala Jones case, and all other cases, that these folk who are in these positions, making No. I mean, let's be honest here. Our history, our legacy, the few folk like Harriet Tubman that we have to represent us under the most outrageous conditions that she did should hold the place in our hearts and minds that we will not let another freed African American do these things. I don't care. You know,
let me ask you this. Let me then ask you this. Is this not an argument that Russell Simmons and every other black American should think in a collective way, but in particular on this issue here, should think just like you?
Now, I heard you ask that question earlier. I'll respond like this. You damn right. With that, I hope I'm not violating any video.
And you know what? And Carl, let me just say this to this brother. This is where I'm going, brother. This is exactly where I'm going with raising these. You know what? I don't. You know what? Just let me say.
Hang on a second, Freedom.
No, this is what I want to say. See, the great thing about this is that whether you agree with me or not, or anybody or anything, stand firm with your beliefs and just answer the question. So I appreciate your answer because you answered it affirmatively and distinctively and determinatively so that there was no equivocation, okay? Because I'm going to ask folks this question. Does it mean that Russell Simmons should think the way you think? And I appreciate that answer. Go right ahead.
And that's exactly because we all are clear that the constitutional rights of Africans here in America are never, hardly ever, let me put it that way, never is too emphatic, hardly ever have their constitutional rights protected. When any other community gets together to defend themselves, as some callers have said, in the case of Anne Frank, with the suggestion of her being parodied, they would not allow, they don't give a damn about a constitutional right. There wouldn't be no consideration. We wouldn't even think about, do we want...
And let me say this to you. You may be right. But does the black community have the economic power to do what you are suggesting?
All right, I tell you what, fellas, hang on a second. Freedom, hang on as well, and you too, attorney, because we've got to take a break at the top of the hour here. Folks, you can join the conversation. It's real easy. It's 800-450-7876. Attorney Joseph Haynes Davis is our guest, and we're speaking with Freedom in D.C. We'll take the calls right after this short break.
Welcome to the Carl Nelson Show.
On Washington, D.C.'s 1450 WOL Radio and live around the world on WOLDCnews.com.
And thank you for staying with us, folks. Our guest is Attorney Joseph Haynes Davis. And again, you can reach us on Facebook and Twitter. You got questions for the attorney. We're discussing the Harriet Tubman sex tape that was done by Russell Simmons. Earlier, we spoke to Rita Daniels, who is the great-great-grandniece of Harriet Tubman. We also spoke with her mother, who is also Harriet Tubman's great-great-grandniece. And they both discussed it with the tape. The older Daniels did not want to see it, and she says that Russell Simmons has tarnished her family's image of Harriet Tubman. And folks, as I mentioned, we spoke to her earlier, and 1320 WDBZ, The Buzz in Cincinnati. If you're online, you can check them out later this evening, I think around 6 or 7 o'clock. They're going to repeat that interview that we did with Rita Daniels and her mother, and also attorney Sophia Nelson, CNN's Don Lemon, Armstrong Williams, a lot of the folks, Najee Ali as well was chiming in as well. So that's 1320, The Buzz, WDBZ in Cincinnati. That's the Radio 1 station, our sister station in Cincinnati. And you can hear that exclusive interview with Rita Daniels and her mother about what they thought of that sex tape that Harriet Tubman, that Russell Simmons did of their family members. So what are your thoughts right now? 800-450-7876 with attorney Joseph Haynes Davis. And Freedom, you still with us?
Yeah, Carl, I'm still here. I was just trying to, make sure we're clear, that we shouldn't be held to any standard that other communities are not held to, in specific to the Jewish community when no one asks, the Jewish community. And I appreciate the question, don't get me wrong, I'm not, but I'm just saying in reality, no one asks the Jewish community, they think that that this type of speech should be censored by the government when they attack or address anybody that speaks like in the sense of so-called anti-Semitism, which is a false dichotomy anyway. But I won't get into that. But no one asked them that. They don't get challenged on that question. So my point is, there's a larger question for the African American community to answer, and that is, I agree with Najee Ali. We should boycott. Russell Simmons is guilty. I mean, he's guilty as a grown man, having no moral or conscious responsibility to the black folks who he's gotten rich off of. So we need to ask.
Let me ask you this: What do you do to the black actors in the video?
When you think about, we can get to that, but when you think about the fact that Trayvon Martin's killer was just released and given his gun back, all of this boycotting should be done to the larger question of the system, a systemic problem that devalues the life of black people, especially black men. Now, if you want to talk about, and I heard that the 20-year-old sister, she was very much on point. You know, we got to deal with the fact that we're teaching a whole other generation that we should be, mealy mouth about the value of our own lives when we talk about worrying about the Constitution or anything like that, when the Constitution does not worry about us when it's applied to other folks more. So we need to begin to say a boycott is necessary on a mass level to change the paradigm that we face on a daily basis. And so the actors in this Russell Simmons film, the producers, DreamWorks, everybody is culpable. They should be responsible for the fact that they're trying to profit. I mean, this is sick.
Well, let me ask you this, because I'm picking out in particular the two actors who are black Americans. What do you do to them? Because DreamWorks and all those other companies, they're not black-owned and operated companies. I'm speaking now strictly to ask you about the black folks who on camera participated in this. What do you do to them?
Well, I'll tell you what. Let me flip it on you. What do you do to the system? Do you boycott it? Do you support the boycott of mass production of material goods and corporations that are like Nike and various others that allow that agree with the exploitation of black communities? What do you do with them? And then you can talk about what do you do with the actors, because they're on a small level. They're on a lower level, if you will.
Because the reason why I asked that is because one could raise the question and, quite frankly, make the argument, how do you find someone to participate in that? Now, the answer to that be, well, Joe, you can always find some Uncle Tom or some person willing to do anything for $1. And my point is that, that's a good answer, but it's also oversimplistic. I think the crux of my position is, or I should say my question is, given everything that you're saying, and given even with Russell Simmons, because Russell Simmons has, run his hip-hop label for years. I used to play all his records as the #1 DJ in Philadelphia. I was one of the first to play Public Enemy on popular pop radio. Period. But given that, I think the thing is that Russell Simmons knew that this type of reaction would happen, and it would happen in a way that some way it will benefit him financially with the network that he was promoting, that he launched, and so forth. So
if that's true, then he deserves to be boycotted. And I tell you what, if that's true, I myself, we all need to go to Trayvon Martin blackout.com, and we need to begin to discuss this. Your question should be discussed in every arena we could possibly use, because the fact is, I'm gonna tell you now, Russell Simmons, what we're doing with him right now is just trying to be, proactive about our own legacies and our own history, right? But what we need to do in terms of contemporary time is we need to make sure that we understand that boycotts have an historic, value to the lives of folk who realize, who use them.
say this. In this instance, I don't think it will work. I don't think it'll work.
Well,
why not?
That would be. Listen. Hold on. Let me address. Hold on. Before I get
okay,
off
go ahead,
line.
Freedom.
Hold on. Let me address this. Hold on. Well, folk are always saying, I don't think it will work. And that's good to pose a question and dialogue. But let me tell you something. Boycotts have worked. There's factual, historic evidence that they do work. The question is, are you promoting them? Are you pushing them in your circle, at your church, at your mosque, in your family?
That's assuming that the masses
You have now social media. Are you kidding me?
That's assuming that the masses think like you, and I submit to you respectfully that the masses just now in this day and age don't think like you.
Your job is to bring the masses along. Your job, my job, our job.
According to who? According to who?
According to historic fact that boycotts work. Our job and responsibility.
In the limited instance where the boycotts work, the boycotts were aimed at municipal transportation in Birmingham.
Okay, that's where we need to educate ourselves. Here we go. The earliest known factual and can be proved I would say strike or use of collective power is known of, and this is documented by historian C.R. Gibbs here in D.C., is in Egypt under the pharaonic rule of Ramesses. There was,
and that's great. But I'm saying Egypt back then. I'm saying now, economically, the way the society is now, it ain't gonna work. I mean, I might even sympathize with you, but the fact of the matter is, it ain't gonna work.
You have no historic base to say it's not going to work. You're just doing what you're saying, what you said earlier. You're assuming. But the historic picture, and I was just starting with Ramesses because it's the earliest known, but bringing it all the way up till today, we have a clear history of the use of boycotts and strikes.
When was the last successful boycott by black people?
Excuse me?
When and what was the last successful boycott by black people?
Oh, let me guess. I won't give you any historic reference here.
I tell you what, hang on a second, Freedom, because we got to take a break, and we'll come back and let you wrap it up on the other side. Folks, you too can join this conversation with Attorney Joseph Haynes Davis at 800-450-7876. We'll take your calls right after this. And thank you for staying with us, folks. Our guest is Attorney Joseph Haynes Davis and Freedom. Freedom, can you wrap it up? A lot of other folks want to speak to the attorney as well, discussing Harriet Tubman's sex tape that was done by Russell Simmons. Can you imagine what the other folks, the white folks, are saying listening to this conversation? I don't know. Freedom, wrap it up, and so we can move on.
Yes, sir. I will wrap it up, Carl, because it's really simple, and I appreciate the conversation. But the facts are that boycotts work. Now, the last thing, when I was a youngin', I was told to divest or not purchase or participate with folk who are not purchasing products and investing in things from South Africa. That's the earliest and last known boycott that I know. Wide boycott. Now, local boycotts or smaller boycotts around the country, I'm sure if we ask it around, some people have had success. But the point here is we don't need to question that. What we need to do is we need to boycott, and we need to do that immediately and in a large mass way, and everybody needs to promote it and participate in it in order for us to see if today, in fact, boycotts will or will not work.
All right. Thanks, Freedom. We're going to keep stepping, folks. Attorney Joseph Haynes Davis is here as an attorney, giving us another side of this whole thing with Russell Simmons and this Harriet Tubman sex tape. Let's go to line 4. Steve's also in D.C. Steve, what are your thoughts? You're on with Attorney Haynes Davis. Steve's gone. How about Craig in Denver on line 5?
Hey, Carl. How are you doing today?
Good.
Well, you know what? It's been a pretty good discussion, but let's get rid of that Phil nigger, Attorney Haynes, and move on to something else.
Well, we don't have to get like that. Let's keep it civil.
No, go ahead. On to him, real quick. Respectfully, sir, I reject that, and let me tell you something. You don't know me, okay? Now, since you went there, I'm going to go there. I'm not going to stoop to your level and use that type of language, but let me tell you something. I am liberated, intelligent, and raising questions here for the purposes of this show. Okay? Now, if it shocks the conscious, if it shocks your conscience to make you think about some things that you don't want to think, so be it. Okay? But I am nobody's boy. I'm nobody's N-word or nothing. Okay? So we can go at it. But, you know, I reject you calling me names, homeboy.
All right,
now, what do you want to deal with?
800-450-7876. He split. Let's go line 6. West is in Atlanta, Georgia. West?
Hey, Carl, how you doing, man?
Good.
Hey, you remember a movie called Drop Squad?
Yep.
Okay, that's what we need now. We need a new 21st century drop squad, i.e., we start posing economic sanctions against these so-called hippity hops and their sponsors. See, just drop their sponsors, man, and quit. Ever since 1980, man, it seemed like the music and after crack hit the community, the whole Black America community went to all from.
Well, let me ask you this, Wes, because as I mentioned, I had this discussion earlier in the day. And actually, the very first call, a sister from Cleveland says that we don't say anything about what is it stuff that they wear. One of the apparel company that dislikes us, the guy who owns it, and said stuff about us, and we still buy their clothing. I can't think of it now; it escapes me.
That guy, wasn't it Tommy Hilfiger?
Tommy Hilfiger, yeah.
Yeah,
and so why are we coming down so hard on our brother? Put that in quotations. And we never did anything with Tommy Hilfiger. So I just wonder, what are your thoughts, West? First.
Well, I don't want to spy anything with somebody else's name on it, man. Tommy Hilfiger, Tommy Middlefinger, none of it, man. I don't spend my money on none of that crap. I agree with Mr. Dick Gregory. We need to take that emotions out of all this, and all the way from Lil Wayne to Russell Simmons, Uncle Russell Simmons. And I got a question for the attorney, man.
Go ahead.
Sir, it was a boycott in Pompano Beach, Florida, where they boycotted a seafood restaurant. So that was the last boycott I know. But my question to you, sir, what if you attorney is doing in Florida to start clearing up these records of these felons and ex-felons that have been their record been clean for the last 20 years, man? That's what needs to be done, sir, I think, in my opinion.
Let me respond to you, and I appreciate that question. I am one of the one of the attorneys on the court-appointed list in Orange County. As a court-appointed attorney, sir, I take indigent clients. Most of my clients are Black American male folks, brothers, accused of felonies, murders, rapes, aggravated assault, aggravated battery, multiple murders, and so forth. And I take those cases and defend them with every breath of my body. And I get paid from the state, very little, and sometimes have to wait up to 90 days, but I still take those cases. Okay,
well, my kudos go to you, sir.
Let me finish. Let me just directly answer your question.
Okay.
In terms of what you just asked me, and I submit to you respectfully, that is more of a legislative issue. So that has to do with getting folks registered to vote and folks voting and those folks understanding what's at stake when voting, and also increasing critical thinking skills. And that means discussing some things from a constitutional perspective that you may not want to hear, but you need to listen to understand. And I thank you for coming on today and asking that question, because that has been my role, despite the derogatory comment of the prior caller. My role today here, sir, is to raise questions and help people think about the greater, broader issues that are really a part of this particular videotape, which, again, I submit to you, is protected constitutionally. So, again, we go back to whether or not is it such of a moral character that morally all Black Americans should be off limits to satire. The brother who spoke eloquently, what was his name, Freedom? He said affirmatively, yes. And I respect that because these are the type of questions we need to ask ourselves.
I got one more question,
I appreciate what you asked.
I got one more question.
Shoot.
Yeah, so, attorney, I agree with you wholeheartedly, man, but we can't legislate moral stability. But my question is, I think the main problem with black men, particularly in the justice system, when we do get to court, we end up copping a plea, man. If everybody, the next person go to court, don't plead guilty to nothing, man. That's what we mess up.
Let me tell you this. Let me tell you this. And you are entitled to your opinion. But sometimes those pleas are in their best interest given the mountains of evidence that the prosecution will bring in certain instances which clearly and plainly point to evidence of guilt.
But if you know you're innocent or something, man, like my case down there in South Florida.
If you are indeed, if you know in your heart that you are innocent, then I get that. If, on the other hand, you are, quote, unquote, trying to beat a case, and you know what I'm talking about, I think I can beat this, beating a case. Well, you know, you may not be able to beat a case when they got fingerprints of you all in the house.
That's true.
And they have fingerprints on a gun that you had concealed on your person that you used, and you are in a legal possession of it. Well, guess what? That type of evidence is pretty strong as to the guilt of the accused defendant.
All right, Wedge, thanks you, Cole. We got to keep stepping because we got a lot of folks want to talk to you.
All right, I appreciate it, man. I want to get
thanks,
to talk to him again. Appreciate it, bro.
Thank you, brother.
All right, let's go to line 5. Chris is in Houston, Texas, listening to us on line 5. Chris, you're on with attorney Joseph Haynes Davis.
Hey, what's up, Carl? What's up, attorney?
Yes, sir. Thank you for calling. I'm humbled to be in your presence on the radio, brother.
Yes, sir. And I called in yesterday, too, and talked to Carl about it because and I asked this yesterday, and I could clearly see that I got the answer to my question. Basically, I know the boycott won't work, especially right now. And I have different reasons why, but mainly it's because people don't know who Russell Simmons is.
All right, hang on, Chris. Chris, hang on a second. We got to take a break, and that's why I called you on, because I know that you want to break down some stuff for us. And folks, you can join the conversation with Chris and attorney Joseph Haynes Davis at 800-450-7876. We'll take your calls right after.
Back to the Carl Nelson Show.
On Washington, D.C.'s 1450.
1450 WOL Radio.
And thank you for staying with us, folks. Again, we're discussing the Harriet Tubman sex tape done by Russell Simmons. Our guest is attorney Joseph Haynes Davis, and we were speaking with Chris in Houston. Chris, you still with us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, cool. So I was saying that I know the boycott won't work right now. A lot of people, you know, they're just not keeping it real with themselves. I mean, I deal with hip-hop, and I get angry about a lot of stuff. But one thing I realize is that I know where the money's coming from. I know who controls the money. And also, you got to think about the person we're talking about here, Russell Simmons. People, when they think about Russell Simmons, they're thinking about this sketch right now. But if you notice, the demographic that Russell is going for isn't calling in and picketing and mad about anything. You know, the young lady that called in earlier, I mean, I love what she broke it down, and I understand where she was coming from, but I can guarantee you that she doesn't keep up with Russell like the average hip-hop head does. For the simple fact is, Russell Simmons is about making money, and anybody in the rap game knows that. And see, what people don't think about also is Russell Simmons has done a lot for the hip-hop culture, and if you say he hasn't, you're lying to yourself. And I tell you, this is where people throw that boycott word around and don't think about it. The average person that listens to rap music is going to know who the most popular mainstream artists are. Now, if you think about somebody like Jay-Z, I always bring up Jay. Now, let's take it back to who Jay was signed by, Russell Simmons. Let's look at the money and the entrepreneurial things that Jay-Z's doing. Who does he credit for that? Russell Simmons. Let's look at the people who listen to Jay-Z and how they feel about race and culture right now. Pretty blended crowd, pretty blended demographic. A lot of them are giving Jay-Z money. And when Jay-Z brings up Russell Simmons, he's bringing up positivity. He's not bringing up any kind of hate. He's not mad at Russell for anything. You're never going to get an answer from Jay-Z about a negative thing that Russell has done because he looks up to him. I say that to say, who do you think this demographic that Jay-Z reaches, or what do you think they're going to think about Russell Simmons? A lot of people that are calling in are from a different age, and I mean, just they're from a different time. And it's the same disconnect we have when it comes to the N-word. You know, it's cool for the rappers to use it and for the youth to use it and all that. That's how they're looking at it. But, of course, you know, certain people aren't going to feel that way. So that's why yesterday when I brought up Quincy Jones, when Najee had mentioned that Russell Simmons is responsible for basically rappers, you know, rapping about crack and all that good stuff, it sounds good. But if you're gonna hold Russell Simmons to that spot, it's a lot of music execs you got to hold to that spot. And unfortunately, the way the music industry is ran, you can't just single out Russell Simmons. Because if you want to clean up what Russell Simmons did, then guess what? You got to go in your household and clean out all the hip-hop you're playing throughout your household, which means that now you got to see what your son or daughter is listening to on their phone and downloading, which means that now you got to look at what they're looking at online, which means that now you got to call the cable company and do something about those channels you got, which means that somewhere you're going to get frustrated because you cannot stop the money. You don't know exactly what Russell Simmons is invested in. You don't know. I mean, it's so deep that by the time you really get to boycotting something, you're only boycotting yourself. And it's sad because
let me add something real quick, because I've been wanting to ask this question, but I've been forgetting to ask it. But I just want to ask the question. Does this incident mean that Russell Simmons is an Uncle Tom?
Well, you know what? That's what I asked.
I'm not asking you. I'm not asking you in particular. I'm asking it for the rest of the passive listening audience. Does this incident mean that all of a sudden Russell Simmons is now an Uncle Tom?
But well, here's the thing about that. You know, when we throw around that whole Uncle Tom thing, it's like, is the hip-hop community ready to call him Uncle Tom? Because if they don't back you on that, guess what? He's not an Uncle Tom. It's as simple as that.
And see, that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. Meaning that, you know, I'm throwing out the questions for the purposes of this show to add to the discussion because I don't have the answers. The only answer I know, affirmatively, is two of them. People are outraged. Some people are outraged. Some people aren't outraged. And the other thing that is indisputable, the videotape itself is protected constitutionally. In other words, he ain't going to go to jail about it, and the government ain't going to, isn't going to censor it.
No, not at all. And you know what? Black people aren't going to censor it because here's the thing. We wake up today mad, but let some time go by. We'll forget all about this. We're just waiting on the next thing to come along. And if you really want to see, if black people are really this mad about it, then let's go ahead and let's keep it real and let's go in and do something about it. In hip-hop, you can't just say Russell Simmons messed up, now we mad at him, he's an Uncle Tom. No, seriously, call your radio station and ask
them. The whole thing is that you've got to know that Mr. Simmons, now this is an opinion, you have to know that Mr. Simmons knew this was going to happen.
Of course.
Russell Simmons is older than me. I'm 54. He's older than me.
Attorney, he's been trying to launch this network for quite some time.
So let me ask you this. So, guys, you think this was a tactical move?
Yeah. Come on. You know, I posted in my commentary that he's a carnival barker just like Donald Trump.
Exactly.
Both of them are in New York. Both of them know each other. Both of them talk fondly of each other. It's
and
about
both
money.
laughing all the way to the bank.
Yep.
It's about money. And again, it goes back to my question, and the brother answered it, Freedom answered it affirmatively, but does this mean that black people should all think alike and think that there are certain historical figures in the black experience that are off limits to any criticism and any satire? That is the question.
Right, but you know, I just want to throw one more comment in there because you know, and Carl, you know, on this radio station, we can't even keep W.E.B. Du Bois and Marcus Garvey, you know, on the same. But here's my point: people don't think about who Russell Simmons is in bed with. People don't know Russell Simmons is a good friend, one of the best friends of Minister Louis Farrakhan. He's a good friend of Jesse Jackson, a good friend of Al Sharpton. And guess what?
And let me jump in here. Is that why they haven't said anything?
Probably so. Probably so. But
that's a great question.
When a corporation messes up, like Pepsi did at one point, when it comes to hip hop, Russell Simmons is going to come get that check. He's going to knock on Pepsi's door and say, "Okay, you screwed up. Now pay us." Rappers love that. The culture loves that, and we don't run the culture. So since we don't run the culture, and we need Russell to help us get a check, guess what? He'll never be an Uncle Tom in the eyes of an MC. Not somebody trying to get signed to have a rap career, and that's who's influencing the youth. That's, right. I mean, there it is.
All right, Chris, thanks for your call. All right, we keep stepping. Wow. 800-450-7876. Go to line 1. Miss Truth in Maryland.
Hello.
Yes, you're on the air.
Hi, yes, thanks for taking my call, Ms. Nelson, and to your guest. The answer I have for the question that you posed about whether things should be censored by the government, I think it should. But before, I wasn't really feeling what you were saying, you know, your point of view. But as I listen to you, I can respect what you're doing, because what you're doing is similar to, in my opinion, what they did during the Civil Rights era when they did training, which I think we really need to start doing that again. But they did training, for example, when they were to go into a diner and they, you know, black people weren't allowed to go. There would be a person who would ask, okay, so what are you going to do if this happens? What are you going to do if that happens? And I think that's kind of like what the attorney is doing, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's kind of like the position that you're holding here. You're kind of
all I'm doing, ma'am, all I'm trying to do is raise some questions for discussion and thought, and not necessarily take a position, because, you know, in reality, there is no real ultimate answer other than what the individual truly thinks in their opinion. So you are somewhat correct. But go right ahead.
Okay. I mean, because at first I wasn't really feeling you, I'll be honest, but the more I listen, and that's why it's good to listen to people, because I can appreciate what your stance is, because you're just trying to throw things out there in the real world. What are you going to really do? What positions, you know, are people going to really take? And, you know, so I tend to respect that. I was going to say, as far as Russell Simmons, I actually think Russell Simmons is a sick person. He's functionally sick. Like, some people are heroin addicts, but they are functional and go to work, and nobody keep it concealed. Nobody knows. I think he's sick. And I'm not saying it as a put down to him, because a sick person in whatever psychological, whatever situation it is, they are not completely in their right mind, so they can't, like, I can't really get mad at somebody who's in a sick condition. And he's not the only one. There's a whole lot of other artists or producers or whatever, black people, who I would say are sick, you know, because you have to be sick to, you know, approve of something like that to begin with. In my
let me ask a quick question.
All right, hang on a sec, guys, because we got to take a break. Hang on, Ms. Truth. Hang on, Attorney Haynes Davis, because we got to take a real quick break here, folks. You can join the conversation at 800-450-7876. When we come back, Attorney Haynes Davis will ask Ms. Truth a question.
1450 WOL, where information.
Station 1320 WDBZ, The Buzz in Cincinnati. They're replaying that starting in an hour from now. Actually, they've already started, but you can check it out, and you can hear what they say for themselves. That's 1320 WDBZ, The Buzz in Cincinnati, and hear what they themselves think about the apology as well issued by Russell Simmons. So let's go back to Attorney Joseph Haynes Davis. I know he has a question for Ms. Truth. Attorney?
Yes, and again, thank you for allowing me. And she raises some good comments. My question, though, she was saying that some of the artists are quote-unquote sick. Russell Simmons is quote-unquote sick. Is it sickness? And if not, how do you respond to those who say it's not sickness? It is the artist and a person
like Mr. Simmons, who says, I'm a liberal, that's what Russell Simmons said, is it the artists and folks like Russell Simmons pushing the boundaries of freedom of speech, expression, thought, and so forth under the First Amendment? If it's that, how do you respond to that?
Okay, Ms. Truth, you still there on line one? I think we may have lost her.
Yeah, okay. And maybe she's gone. But Carl, I want to. Is she there?
Oh, she's there. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. It was my phone. I was going to say to your question, I did hear your question, and my answer is I think it's both. I obviously think it's both, and that's why yes, the situation do enrage me as a black woman, but to him, I can't be that mad at him, and I wouldn't even want to hear an apology from him, and I don't even know if the apology, I mean, maybe the family would want to hear a personal apology.
Yeah.
I would see it as being an apology from a person who, like you said, he is doing it for personal benefits, for financial benefits, but I believe underlying all of that, he's under the influence of what a lot of people would say maybe white supremacy or whatever, but he's under the influence of something that's really negative and really play on his spirit, because I believe his father is a pastor or something. At least that's what it showed on that Fresh Groove movie. So maybe I'm wrong, but I think his father is a pastor or something like that. So
his brother is, but let me and I don't mean to interrupt, but I want to catch something to ask you with another question. Okay, now. How do you answer that he is not under a spell? He is a shrewd businessman, and he is expanding and expounding on the boundaries of, again, freedom of speech and expression and protected satire. How do you respond to that?
Well, in that case, if it's not that he is, like, I mean, I can't, I'm not a doctor, of course, so I'm not going to say like anybody's determined to be sick in any one particular way, but if it's really not anything that's, you know, psychological, whatever, that's causing him to be that way, even though I think it's almost impossible to be a black person in the music industry right now that big without having some type of impact. But if he just is pure business, I think that's even worse. But still, in my opinion, I would feel more of a compassion to somebody like that, because, in my opinion, he is so far gone as a human being that it's kind of like the Boston Bomber and those type of people. When those people do that, they say, that was a troubled young man, or that was a whatever. And I don't know whether a doctor actually gave them something to say they were troubled, but that's what they say. To him, I would say he's a troubled individual, and there's nothing he can do for me. I'm not going to support him. I mean, I don't.
But he didn't commit a crime. He didn't commit a crime. He did not commit an act of terrorism or a crime.
Well, in my opinion, it is a crime to the black community. In my opinion,
I get that, and that's a very good answer. So now my next question is this: how would you have felt if the black man hiding in the closet would have come out with a semi-automatic Smith & Wesson M&P 15X so-called assault weapons rifle and empty 50 of the 100-round magazine into the body of the alleged slaveholder?
Well, actually, I would have. To be honest, I'm glad that didn't happen, and I'll tell you why. It would have been a good ending, but I'll tell you why I'm glad it didn't happen. Because I think the video showed the true intention of the person who funded that program. Whoever is behind the thought of it, I think that was the true intention, and there was no intention of them showing a black man standing up for themselves. And that's why I think black men, period, like the person that called in earlier and they insulted you and said all that, I think black men, period, those type of things is a wake-up call for black men, period. Black men and women need to be unified. Without unity, no boycotting, nothing is not going to work. If we are not unified, it's not going to work. If I'm going to call you a name every time you don't agree with me, nothing is going to work. So the unity has to be there, and that's what Harriet Tubman was about. In order to honor her for the family or anybody who's talking about this today, the only way you can honor her is to do what she did. She didn't boycott. But
keep in mind what Harriet Tubman did is because of the institution of slavery, which you know. Okay? In other words, she was freeing slaves. In this instance, I submit to you, and I'm only asking the question, and I'm glad when you said, hey, Joe, when I first heard you, I didn't like what you were saying, but I see what you're doing. You're raising questions for commentary. In this instance, it's post-emancipation. In other words, we're way past 1865. And in this instance, you have
physically, but not mentally. But go on.
Well, whatever. But here you have someone exercising a constitutional right, and my question is also then, respectfully, should all black Americans either think alike or think like you on this issue?
All black women, all black people should think like me on this issue, in my opinion. And I think you were saying what should happen to Russell Simmons, or what I think should happen to him for this. I think every black organization, every black person who have any type of idea similar with how I feel about it, which I think it was disgusting. I think every black organization, every black person should be at Russell Simmons' door or gate or wherever he lives at. In his office, I mean, not his office, his office building in New York, wherever his office buildings are, as often as possible for the next, I don't know how long, trying to reach out to him to teach him about why those type of things are wrong. And not just that, teach him about his history, teach him about the whole
I tell you what, Marie, we're going to let you go. Hang on, attorney, because we got to keep stepping here, because we want to get another call in before we go. Let's go to line 4. Marie's in College Park, Maryland. Thanks, Mr. Marie's in College Park, Maryland, out there by University of Maryland. Marie, still with us?
Yes, I'm still here. I'm going to be very brief.
Okay.
Number one, we talk about boycotting. We need to stop boycotting black businesses. That's your attorney wanted to know who was a successful boycott. The fact that we boycott and we do not support our own. There it is. Number two, I heard something about Steven Spiel. I mean, that's DreamWorks. Is DreamWorks involved in this?
Right. They funded it.
Okay. And is this the same DreamWorks of Steven Spielberg, who had issues when Michael Jackson referred to the term kike in a song and had them stop this? Is it the same one?
It's one and the same.
Okay. Then we need to boycott DreamWorks pictures and everything. Also, number 3, with reference, what was done was despicable. And we have to start standing up and stop hating ourselves and stand up for the icons in our communities and nation. People look at this around the world. You know, this isn't just here. This is the global thing. And whatever we do in this country, people do pretty much respond or react on a global level. And yes, there should be some things that are off the table, as they say, and this is one. We should not let there isn't enough money in the world to when it comes to our icons, who made this country what it is, who also were able to transfer those talents into the world. And furthermore, when are we going to stop prostituting ourselves for money?
All right, Marie, I'm going to let you go on that because we just about run out of time, and I want to give the attorney a chance to wrap it up. How can folks read the piece that you wrote, Attorney Joseph Haynes Davis?
And I respect and thank the young lady who just made the commentary. My blog is constitutionally-speaking.com, constitutionally-speaking.com, and you can follow me on Twitter at Sivad Media. That is SIVAD Media on Twitter. That's basically Davis spelled backwards.
All right. Thanks, attorney.
So you can and listen again, Carl. It's always an honor to be on your show. I want to say again, for the benefit of the audience, you are the true talk show broadcaster that gives all perspectives on issues. You are a man who hopefully will go down in history, noted for that for the black community. And I'm always honored and humbled to be on your show, and thank you for the opportunity.
All right, thank you. That's Attorney Joseph Haynes Davis. Thanks for the kind words out of Orlando, Florida. And just folks, for the musical folks, He is the younger brother of Miles Davis. Those of us of a certain age understand what a giant Miles was in this issue. I want to remind you folks, if you want to listen to this conversation, you can continue it on 1320 WDBZ, The Buzz. If you're on the internet, they're located in Cincinnati, and they're doing a repeat, and you can hear the family of Harriet Tubman, what they have to say about all what went down. It's time for us to get out of here, and remember to join Morgan in the Skybox tomorrow, talking about sports tomorrow evening. All right, folks, Andre's up next. God willing, we join you Monday, 4:30, right here on 1450 WOL.